Hey, everybody, it's Brandon Crane, the original Ben Hanscom from the It miniseries. 29 years later, just wanted to say thanks. And you are watching Mr. Death Breath. And don't go anywhere.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're here with Brandon Crane. You may know him as Ben Hanscom from 1990's It. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for being here. Guys, I don't know if you know, but I'm a huge It fan. As you know, I have a tattoo. Big fan. So let's start off with the good stuff. So, what was the driving force that got you into acting as a young child?
My grandfather was an actor. He was in Gone with the Wind, which was, 1939 classic Hollywood. He and George Reeves, who would later go on to be Superman, were the two twins in the beginning who were dating Scarlett. So, he came in like pretty much fresh off the train from Louisiana, and he was escorting his cousin in there, and they overheard his authentic Southern drawl and auditioned him on the spot, and he ended up with a contract, working for David O. Selznick. Anyway, so years and years and years go by, and I think I was 4, and he was having a party, and there were some people that were there, and I guess I was really precocious, and I think I was doing an impression of Neil Diamond. Right? Yeah, that's what you do.
Hey,
1980,
cool,
right? Today. Yeah. So I did that, and then there was a lady that was there who thought that I would be a good fit for some commercials. And, at the time we lived really far away from LA, so it didn't, make a whole lot of sense. But I knew that's what I wanted to do. So I think my mom reluctantly drove me up to have an audition that I ended up getting. And it was for a Skippy peanut butter commercial with Annette Funicello. So it became something that worked out. And I think I did pretty consistent commercial work until I started getting into TV stuff. A few years later. So I think that was the entree. Nepotism all the way.
Right.
There's no reason, like living just outside of San Diego, that would have been a normal path for me. If I hadn't been at that specific place at that specific time doing that specific thing. It's amazing how fragile the world is, how impossible it is. What are the odds that all of those things would come together? So it was cool. And I was able to do that for a really long time, off and on. And it's always been a huge part of my life.
Okay, so before we get into the juicy bits on It, which I know everyone wants to hear, let's take a quick segue down to the Wonder Years.
Right.
So what was that like? Because I liked
cool.
that show, and it was great. So tell us about it, please.
That was the best gig ever. I came on, I think, in the second season pretty early on as Doug Baker, right? And I was just some filler character that could be a center, that I could play football in the street with the guys. So I auditioned for that, and it was cool. And that was it. And I think about a month later, I could be wrong. I don't really remember the timelines. It was only 30 years ago. Like just 30 years ago. I think early February, it was like the 30th anniversary. I think it's like February 8th or February 9th. Who's counting? God, it's crazy getting old. So I auditioned for that. I got the part, and I did that one episode. And then about 4 weeks later, there was another audition for a student council member who, wanted to make sure that the vending machines were full, for the students, while everybody else was debating a walkout protesting the Vietnam War. That was like my first experience being like, the butt of some fat jokes, right?
Yeah.
Or being a token something, whatever. It was fine. I didn't really care.
Well, that's good to handle it. I figured that would be kind of difficult, I don't like when people make fun of me. Especially my height. And I'm like, oh man,
Yeah, it's kind of it gets to you at the beginning, and then when you realize, well, dude, you're just getting paid to do a job. It's not like they're pointing fingers at you or what. It doesn't matter. You laugh all the way to the bank, right? So
exactly.
they have more money than sense. So it's all good. I was just representing a piece of, real life. There's lots of fat people everywhere, and they need to be represented. Sure.
I love your sense of humor and the way you view it. You're wonderful.
I mean, it is what it is. It is what it is. Okay, so I did that one, and it was a walkout episode, and I think Lindsay Price was in that. And Lindsay's been working, since I think she was a fetus, like nonstop. She's doing a bunch of stuff now. Anyway, so I did that one, and then some time goes by until they ended up casting for Doug again, and it was Doug Porter. I don't know why we re-auditioned. I don't know. Maybe they thought I sucked. I don't know what it was. I wasn't.
Suck, that's for sure.
I had no illusions, right? And there's a little side story about sucking and being okay with it. It happened years before. Anyway, yeah. So I went there and I auditioned, and there were the same people I always saw, like Dion Zamora and other fat kids du jour, and they brought me back in, but then it was Doug Porter instead of Doug Baker. So, I mean, I think I should win a medal for having metal, like trying to get my face in there as many times as I possibly could. But the third one stuck because it was a character that Todd Langen, who wrote Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle movies, enjoyed writing and thought it would be a useful tool. So it was great. That was the best gig ever because I learned so much from all the crew people, like the sound guy Aggie, Agamemnon Andrianos. He used to let me like run the speed. He used to let me like do the recording, or a couple of times that the boom operator would actually let me do the boom. I got to experience a whole lot, and that would actually come in handy, years later, when things kind of slowed down a little bit, but I still wanted to work in the arts. So I made the transition to working on the tech side for a while, and that was totally great. I owe them everything. And then the two main kids were super cool. I mean, they introduced me to a lot of things, like Two Live Crew, typical 12-year-old kid stuff.
You did a good job on the show, and that was interesting when you said Doug Baker, because I remember thinking Doug Porter, so I was confused by that. And I'm thinking maybe he forgot, but you gave me an interesting. It's interesting,
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, you give me an inch, I'll take a mile. But it was a trip. I mean, I had to work hard to get that. But it was a sweet gig. I mean, our craft services wasn't like a collapsible table; it was a freaking 7-Eleven, which for me then was great.
It's still great.
Take a break from school and get a big slushy. Just make sure it doesn't turn your tongue pink and get upset.
What I love about your acting is you always come across so genuine. So taking it back to it, like Ben Hanscom, like he always seemed, and even now I still see it. It's the way you come across. You bring this genuine, good personality out, where you just seem very genuine and kind. And that's what I love about your acting. That when I see you in Wonder Years or in It, you just seem very genuine. You seem to have this good center where you come from a good place.
Well, thanks, man.
Let's take it to It, okay? So,
okay, we're going to It.
What was the audition process like?
It was long. Yeah, it was long. I remember thinking that I didn't get it about 4 times.
Wow.
Yeah. And I remember the first audition was kind of weird because I was sitting down at someone's desk at Jim Green's office, and kind of running the lines and reading it with someone. And I thought I did okay. I was really ready for it. I really wanted to do it because I just read the book. I had a neighbor who, his name was Paul, and he was sort of like, he was like 2 or 3 years older than I was. So he was like my ambassador to pop culture and things that are cool, like turned me on Metallica and all the things that, I wouldn't have listened to. Anyway, yeah. So, I mean, he gave me like that Salman Rushdie book from ages ago, like the Satanic Verses. Things that back then, 88, 89, 90, you weren't really supposed to be messing with when you were a kid.
Right.
I mean, Metallica is pretty homogenous. I'm not saying they're like so hardcore.
Back in the day, they weren't. Back in the day, they were different.
Yeah, I mean, they were. It was something else. But, there was Pantera. It was like the gateway drug to things that I'd end up enjoying later. Anyway, yeah, no. Paul let me read it, and I had no idea that they were going to make a movie about it. And I think I'd read it, and I think it was about a month after I was done. I got a call from my agent saying, "Hey, they're casting a Stephen King miniseries." And I was like, "Okay, I'll be right there." And then they said, "You're going to be reading for the role of Ben," and I immediately went back to the book, and I was like, this is perfect. I want to do this, right? So I was ready. I mean, I think I was more prepared for that than anything. And I wanted that more than anything. I didn't know who else was going to be in it. But the process, yeah. I mean, going back to the beginning, I think I had that audition and then I think 2 other callbacks. And they weren't in rapid succession. Sometimes I'll get home and they'll say, "Hey, come back tomorrow at 3:00, and it's a callback, or we're going to do some chemistry reads." I mean, it's usually pretty quick. This went on forever, and then one Saturday, they invited a bunch of kids to do the chemistry session, so in front of a camera, just to kind of see, you mix and match the kids to see who might get on better, who has chemistry, who could really come off like they're real friends. So they'd rotate us in and out. And then I got to thinking, I thought I was the only fat kid in there. So that kind of puffed me up a little bit. I was like, oh yeah, I think I'm going to get this. But then I think I got desperate and I asked the cameraman, I was like, where are the other Bens? Where are the other fat kids? And he looked at me and he said, actually, they were looking in Vancouver. I think there was a kid in Texas and a kid in Seattle, but it looks like you, probably. That doesn't happen. Nobody ever says that, right?
Right.
They're always playing poker because at the end of the day, you're just cattle anyway. Dime a dozen. For real. So, yeah, I mean, there's plenty of eager people. So, enough time passed after that I thought, damn, that dude told me that I practically got it. I can't believe I didn't get it. I would have found out by now. They would have called me that day or the day after. It took some time. And so I thought I didn't get it. Then I get the phone call and all was well. And it was literally, can you be here in a week in Vancouver? It was the end of my 8th grade year.
Wow.
I think two weeks before the end of my 8th grade year. And they said, yeah, can you come up to Vancouver and we're going to start right away. Yeah, okay, no problem. Missed the last 2 weeks of school. Fine. I'm okay with that. So we flew up there and I ended up meeting John Ritter and Annette O'Toole. They were doing the outside scenes in front of their house, in front of her house. And so we did the wardrobe stuff. I got a haircut. Like Tommy Lee Wallace, the director, he literally sat next to me and told them how to cut my hair because it was a haircut that he had as a kid. And that's what he wanted for my character. And I said, okay, so, where do we start? And they put me on a plane and sent me back home. So I still had to finish the last 2 weeks of school, right? And then
so they just got you there to get a haircut and see the place and then send you back?
Yeah, honestly. I think it was, well, it's cool. I mean, it was like the most expensive haircut ever, right?
Right.
Yeah. It's if you're going to ditch school, you're going to do it, 1,500 miles away from home. That was cool. It was great. And then, and then a couple weeks later, we started filming. That's it. Took me a while to get there, but you get the point.
No, please. I'm enjoying talking to you, and honestly, people want to see what you're about because we see you in the movie, and It's good to see the character versus the person. So by all means, take it away. Okay, so you read the book. You knew what you were getting into, so you weren't surprised. So did you know, or did you know that this film was going to be successful, or even to this level where people are getting tattooed and all these things?
Absolutely not. In fact, it was what's the word I want to say? I don't want to say Bush League, but it wasn't a feature film. And there were some feature films, obviously, that did amazingly well. I mean, going back 20 years before that, or not 20, but close. and there was misery was happening. So we thought, okay, well, we're going to be on TV. So at the time, most made-for-TV movies, they may have gone to VHS, but they're quickly forgotten, unless there's something like The Boy in the Plastic Bubble or, something remarkable, right? Usually they're forgotten. So we thought, right, we're in the Stephen King movie that's going to be forgotten. I had no idea that this many years later, there'd be people with, tattoos, or that I would get something.
Oh my gosh, that is amazing.
Yeah, no. Yeah. Yeah,
I love it.
It totally makes me a carny, and it's okay. I'm okay with it because, look, actors don't particularly like to be pigeonholed or what's the word I'm looking for? They don't want to be part of one particular thing. They don't. They don't like typecast, but you don't want to be defined by the one thing. It's really limiting as an actor. So it's a fear. It's right up there with forgetting your lines. It's not something you want, but it has become huge. Like, pop culture has taken the ball and they have run with it. And so I'm like enormously proud. So last year we were in Birmingham, in the UK. We went to a horror convention there, and it was Marlon, Taylor, me, Ben Heller, and Adam Frazel. And Jared Blankard, who was Henry Bowers, he lives over there. He lived 40 minutes away from the venue. So it was great. So we had a little reunion, and we made really good friends with the guy who is the artist for the poster. His name is Joe Worrell, and he's a really awesome tattoo artist, Joe K. Worrell. And we hit him up. It's like, hey, dude, can you do a couple of tattoos? So I know Jared got Switchblade.
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember where he got it. I think he ended up getting on his wrist. Marlon Taylor already had a balloon in the back of his ear, so he got a boat underneath that. I mean, it was just fun. Like, we're so proud to be a part of it that we have no problems putting it on our bodies. I mean, we're like fiercely proud, man. We had no idea it was going to be this successful. Anyone would care.
As a fan, and I know for me and everyone else, when they're going to watch this, they're going to be like, "Oh my gosh, that is so amazing!" And I know you traveled to England recently for a convention, and I'm like, dude, like, I get to interview him, but I'd like to go meet them all and take a picture. It's like, my gosh, you can make so much money off it now. What scene frightened you when you worked on the film?
Okay,
if any.
No, there were two. There were two things that really kind of shook it up. Like, the very first thing that I shot, and I think a couple of us shot, was when we climbed down the ladder and I pick up the pom-pom when I'm in the sewer. That was the first thing I shot. So we're already in a spooky place. I think it was underneath an insane asylum. Right? So these were the corridors that they used to transport the dead bodies, not to alarm the patients. I mean, it's not like a laundry chute. They don't just like stuff the body down the chute. I mean, but it was underground, so they could transport them, off of the property. So they'd already had this weird juju going on. Plus, they put the smoke and the lights, and it was spooky, and everybody's quiet. They set the scene really well. So there was that. There was that sort of sense of foreboding. Plus, it's the first part that I'm shooting, and I'm, here's some pros flanking me on both sides. I didn't want to blow it or look like I didn't want to blow it. So there's a lot of pressure, and that was scary too. So that kind of added to it. And then the other thing was when we were working with Tim in the sewer in the confrontation at the very end, because in rehearsals he's like, I'm Tim. You want me to stand here? You want me to do this? And then Tommy calls action, and he's like, I'm the eater of worlds. He's like, it's electric, man. He was like, it was a really good acting lesson, for a kid too. I mean, child actors don't get all pedantic. We don't have the master's degree in acting, so it's all learned by doing. So the jargon and all that stuff is lost on you. But when you are, working with someone like that in that kind of environment, you walk away with so much. It was humbling, and it was amazing. Totally electric. Masterclass. That's what I like to say. It was a masterclass.
Yeah, Tim Curry is something special. With the new It movie, the child actors were separated from Bill Skarsgård. The makeup reveal was very much revealed to them as they did a scene. Was that like that in your situation, or was it just kind of casual?
No, it was really casual. We didn't do a lot of overlapping. I met Tim after he did his bit standing on the water when we have our confrontation. That was the first time.
With your dad? Oh, I hate that scene.
Right.
Oh, that's a scene that always makes me uncomfortable.
Yeah, and I was already starstruck because I'd worked with Jonathan Banks, who's Breaking Bad, a few years before that on a TV series, and so he was kind of my first hero, mentor type person, and he was on a TV show called Wise Guy, and Tim Curry had been on that show as a recurring villain. So I already knew who he was. I'd seen Rocky Horror. The Hunt for Red October had just come out. He was the doctor on the Russian ship. So I was well aware of who Tim Curry was. So that was probably the first time I was ever really starstruck. He's coming, walking on. It was the first time I saw him in his makeup or anything. And we were like passing ships. He did his bit. I'm going to go do mine, and we're not doing it together. But yeah, that was the extent of it. I think it's the same kind of dynamic with everyone else too. Once we'd already started working with him, I know Emily in the documentary that's coming out pretty soon, she was like, yeah, he was just Tim. He's hanging out, chain smoking in his chair, and every time we'd walk by, he would sneer or do something, but it wasn't to get our goat. He was just like, hey, how are you? He's not like some, method actor who has checked out from reality while he's wearing the costume. He was a consummate professional. He could be Tim Curry and Pennywise at the same time.
Right.
Yeah.
So my question is this: what did you think of the new Pennywise? How does he stack up according to Brandon Crane, aka Ben Hanscom? Who's scarier, honestly, Bill Skarsgård or Tim Curry?
It makes me sound like such a politician, man, but it's apples and oranges. I'll say this, like what I liked about Tim's, other than him being our Pennywise, he had the capacity to lure in kids. He had the capacity to entice children, because he could smile and he didn't look so crazy. Like when Eddie in the new film is behind the Neibolt Street house and he sees Pennywise behind the balloons, you look at that, you're like,
Yeah.
Not interested. No thanks. So yeah, no. In that regard, I that's not my thing, right? I think Tim's Pennywise was better in that regard. But as far as the sheer terror is concerned, him being his aggression, Bill Skarsgård's aggression was, I think, greater. Obviously, that's just the tools he was given as well. I mean, you didn't have to worry about as much now as you did then, especially for television. And then second, I kind of liken his portrayal to like what Johnny Depp did with Willy Wonka. He kind of brought this kind of innocent, childlike, this childlike innocence in there as well, where it's sort of maladjusted and sort of off, right? So that was I think the combination between those two things is what I think makes his scarier. Bill's scarier. Yeah. So, I mean, it is apples and oranges. I enjoy them both, but, I mean, for modern audiences, I think Bill's was definitely scarier.
Nice. That's interesting to hear, because I always wondered what you thought about that, especially since you're working on it. A lot of the young actors said how they built lifelong friendships working on It 2017. Did you still talk to anybody that you worked with, or do you have any connections anymore?
Yeah, I mean, we're all super pals now. We're like the Fantastic Five right now, and six. I mean, you can say 6 or 7, with Jared as well, because he's in on all of this as well. For us, then it was we all went our separate ways. It was just another job, right? And we all kind of lived in different places. Adam lived in Texas. Ben lived in Vancouver. Emily lived in Vancouver. Marlon was in LA, I think, at that time, but he was from New York. So we all went our separate ways for the most part. We keep in touch with letters and then later email. But the first time Marlon and I connected in Atlanta earlier last year, and it was amazing. It was like time hadn't passed. We just picked up right where we left off. And then when we got to Birmingham, we added Adam and we added Ben. Again, vacuum. I mean, it was like we just finished this thing not too long ago. And earlier this month, we finally got to be with Emily as well. She came out to London with us. So it was great to have most of us. And Seth, we've reached out to Seth. Seth's reached out to us. I mean, he's got so many things going on because he's the only one really still at it. So, it's not, he doesn't have I don't think he has the time to just take off for a while and go, do these things. But he's given us his blessing. And so we're all still in touch. It's great. Awesome. 27 years later, it's amazing.
That is amazing.
20 going on 29. Wow. I don't know where it goes.
Okay, so are you a horror movie fan? Or what's your favorite genre, if not?
I love Evil Dead. I love Evil Dead 2. I like the camp. Not really into the Friday the 13th. I hate to say it. Things like that. I love, the crazy trauma ones. I don't have a particular genre that I like. I just like the ones that don't take themselves too seriously. But at the same time, I love the stuff that's happening with movement. Like Andy Machete's, he did Mama.
Yeah, that was
a lot of that stuff is shot in reverse, or composited, and it's, to me, that's totally frightening. Totally frightening. So I like those two. I don't know. There's just a certain thing that works for me. Yeah, I'm not a horror like Die Hard. You know what I mean? I'm being exposed to more and more things though, and I like the genre. I'm just, I don't know. We'll see.
So, the question I like to ask all my guests is, what scares you? It can range from anything. What frightens Brendan Crane?
Old age. Yeah, that's pretty scary.
Yes.
Like I went in last year for my knee, right? My knee hurt. I was like, I guess I better go see this. So I get a referral to an orthopedic guy, and then they're putting needles in my knee and stuff. And they're like, "Well, you have arthritis, sir." And I'm like, "What? I'm not old enough to have arthritis. This is stupid." I found a gray hair on my beard the other day. I pulled it out, and I was like, I didn't tell anyone about it. It's embarrassing. No, getting old is I think the thing that scares me the most. I've had a really sort of fun experience so far. So if I end up having to kick off now, it's cool. I'm not afraid of that. Yeah, I don't know. There's maybe no, I can't say it. There are some things that I find very frightening right now, but I'll just keep that inside.
We'll go with old age because that's scary. I mean, even Pennywise survived that.
No, you're right. So, you're right.
Yeah. And don't pluck the hair. You pluck one, your whole face is going to turn gray. So I've heard. So,
I wish I'd known that before.
Oops, sorry.
Yeah, no.
Okay, so what future projects have you going on? What's coming up? What are you working on? People want to know.
Yeah, no, I want to get back into the film game, but it's got to be right. I don't live in LA, but luckily there's submissions and things. So I'm exploring maybe getting back on that side of things. What I've got going on right now that is, I think, the only arts related thing is I'm actually running a theater company.
Oh wow!
A musical theater company, right? I don't do jazz hands, but they do. So it's all good. But I feel like proliferating the arts is the thing for me right now. I mean, I worked for years in LA doing lighting on the production side in theater. But I also worked as an actor and a singer, for years. And
You sing? Oh,
well, yeah, it's crazy.
that's
I don't
amazing.
know how well anymore, but I was a legit tenor back in the day. Anyway, I feel like it's an important piece of culture, and especially musical theater. I know people think it's fluff and campy, but it really is an American art form. That convention is uniquely American, so it's something I'm happy to sort of help pass on. I don't live, like I said before, I don't live in a big city, so the arts aren't quite as prevalent here unless some big show comes into town. But there are so many kids that want to be a part of something like that. So I'm working really hard with about 10 other people, trying to create a platform that will give them the experience to work with professionals and up their game and decide to pursue it or not. It's something I'm really passionate about, and I'm happy that I'm in a position to help with that.
And how long have you been running the theater company?
Less than a year. Yeah,
Well,
less than a year.
it's in infancy stage.
Yeah. No, I joined the board about 2 years ago, and it's just you show up to meetings and you sort of help guide the conversation, and then an opportunity came for me to kind of step up and make a bigger impact. So that's what I'm working to do right now.
That's awesome. I want to thank you so much for taking the time to let me interview, guys. Brandon Crane, aka Ben Hanscom from the It movie. Guys, watch his movie. Go support it. Go buy some merch. If he's coming through a con, come take a picture with him. He's a great person.
It's funny. Like right now, it's really funny. This is like some Blair Witch stuff going on right now because I've totally lost all the light. But if I go inside, it's a madhouse. I got 2 kids in there, and they're tearing the place apart, and the 2 dogs. So we're like Blair Witch Project.